there's a movement right now to change the way we're doing the voting, because we started mail-in votes in 2020, I think, right? Mail-in ballots. And that was the first time we had ever done that.
Yes.
And now they're trying to go back. So, or there's a group of people that want to go back and vote. You can only do it paper day of.
It's not going to happen.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to do paper day of.
You always can vote the day of.
Yeah, but like
only
making that the only solution, because it's not a national holiday. It's not easy. The voting lines are atrocious. Your voter turnout plummets. So do you feel confident, though, that the mail-in system is secure enough to where every vote counts? Like you just said, 4 votes, what if we're mailing them to people that don't actually need to get one?
I know this from being in this situation. They do match signatures.
Okay.
And you better sign what's on your driver's license, and it better, if you do a fancy N on your ballot, it's
driver's license to the voter card, essentially.
To the voter card. And Jimmy will tell you during this last election, they called his kids and said,
"Who's Jimmy?"
Hughes.
Oh, Jimmy Hughes.
That they called his daughter and said, your ballot doesn't match your signature. You know what I mean? Like, the signature we have on your ballot does not match. And so they come back and they give you a week. And that's what takes the week to clear those votes, is they go back and say, you voted in person and we have a ballot here, and your in-person ballot's always going to count, or your signature didn't match. And so
we have a committee of people sitting around tables, shuffling through papers, matching.
I don't think they're shuffling through papers. And in the new county building, there's a secure area downtown. Our office, I think in 2 Thursdays, our city council is part of their work meeting. We're going down to tour that because it's a big area to do it. I know when I was talking to somebody at the county the other day, they would really like to get a sorter that will sort it by precinct. So when your ballot comes in, if you're precinct 41, all those ballots immediately will go to precinct 41. Then they don't have to sort them if there's a question to precinct, that they can just go back to that precinct and know it. Hurricane, I think, is going to hand count this year. And I don't know that hand counting is any better, because Washington City brought somebody down from the state and they went through the how comes and why it's better to have the mail-in system and how the votes are counted. But, if you were alive during the Hanging Chad thing, if one of those little pieces of paper...
I was alive during the Hanging Chad thing.
So then, you know what I mean? And so, but when they've had...
But that was in person too, right? We've always had this voter, how do we count these things? I mean, this is a tale as old as democracy, right?
But in Washington County, I feel good about it. Nationwide, I don't know.
Right. Which, I think that's the importance of knowing your local elected officials, right? Is like, when voting is in question, you want to trust the ones at least that are local to you. But it seems like the whole country's like, I trust mine, but I don't trust anybody else's. And everybody else says the same thing. I trust mine, but not everybody else's. And then when you look at the national, statistic, it's like, how does that even match? How do those two things match? How do we all trust local, but we don't trust not local? And they all feel the exact same way.
And you can track your ballot in Utah. You put your ballot in, you can go to utah.gov and track your ballot.
It's like transparency.gov, I think, too. Like something easy to get to. They've done a pretty good job, I think, with the Utah website of being able to navigate through it.
And they don't count votes till the day of the election, but you can see that your ballot was returned, and then it's counted. It doesn't say how you voted, but
yeah. So it has basically they scan it in and you can see your votes. Well, so you trust this one. Every vote counts. We have an election coming up this year, which is the reason why I'm doing this whole podcast to start, right? Is this city council election leading into the summer. So if you don't know, did I tell you a little bit about what the plan is and kind of the project that I'm working on?
Oh, I want to hear it. So
it's like a rock the vote. That's the MTV or get out the vote, whatever the thing is. I want to do a voter information booth. It's a private group of us that all feel the same way about, hey, we need to get the most information out to the public as possible, be able to interview all the different sides, different angles, different topics that are important to us locally. It is St. George because I want to do a really good job. I don't want to just do kind of a half job. And so I'm just focusing on St. George because it does have 3 seats that are opening up. It's a voting majority swing, right? You know, you could have basically a whole new council next year, right?
Yes.
And looking at that as an opportunity, and also it's kind of a challenge to those that are running again, because I'm gonna assume Danielle, Greg, and Jimmy are all running again. When this airs, it'll be after June 7th. So June 7th is the deadline for candidates to enter in the race. So the 1st through the 7th, and then we have until August 15th for the primaries.
Yes.
And so these episodes will post every Tuesday, starting on May 16th, and I'm going to do the 5 mayors of the five city coalition, and then I'll have you and Michelle Tanner on in succession, just because after the mayors, you guys aren't running, and then that way it'll open up for if Danielle, Greg, and Jimmy all want to run again, then I'll do their interviews, and then I want to get the candidates. So whoever wins out of the primaries, I want to get those candidates an interview as well, so I can like talk to them and ask them their opinion on what's the deal with water, and you know how do they feel about economic development, things like that.
I think that's a great idea. I think the more you can do, I think this is going to be the most important for St. George City election we have had in a very long time. I feel like
Michelle Tanner said ever in the history of St. George, this is the most important one. I don't know if that's true.
Right now it is. I really feel like
though.
Michelle and I, even though we're not always on the same page, we're a lot on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel the 2 most conservative candidates I think were elected this go around. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens this next election.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we've got a wonderful city manager in place right now.
John Willis. Shout out to John Willis.
John Willis. John Willis.
You're a good man.
He really is. He's thoughtful. The department heads are, for the most part, I think, are really happy with the choice we made. It's kind of a little bit of challenge when you bring somebody within an organization and set them at the top, when they've worked shoulder to shoulder. They know each other well. They know each other's strengths and weaknesses. And so when you pluck one of those people out of being one of us, and then you elevate them to the next level up and say, now you're gonna make this organization your own, because really it is his organization as far as staffing goes, what he feels comfortable with working with. And so, you know, could that put people a little bit not at ease? No, they've come and said, you know, he has a super good open door policy. He wants people to bring their own solutions because it's their own department. And he knew his own department. He was a master of his own department. But like when our Parks and Recreation person comes to him and says, you know, this, that, or the other, or Scott from the water department comes and said, I think we should look at this, or this is a problem, but I think this is a solution. And I think that's where you see people excel, when you don't have somebody, you know, trying to do your job for you. But John can also tell you you're wrong. He's told me I'm wrong. He said, I need you to rethink that. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a tactician,
mm-hmm.
right? So, you know, you look at this city council as being a governing body and a board of directors, right? They're a board of directors with an executive as the mayor. And then you have middle management, right? There's middle management that's the tacticians. They're the people that are getting the jobs done on a day-to-day basis. And so it's a tough balance because the city council members rotate through, and sometimes we rotate through too much and too fast.
Yes.
Truthfully, because then you have not a lot of stability in that council and in that directorship, especially when we're talking about approving developments and zoning changes and things like that. You know, that can rock the boat quite significantly when you have a city council that I think might not be prepared for the job that's at hand, right?
It gets too fluid.
Yeah, and so we need a really strong city manager, in my opinion, and I've heard great things about John. And truthfully, time is going to be the teller of the job that he's going to do, because it's such a long process. You know, there's developments that I'm sure, you know, looking back, we're like, ooh, we shouldn't have done that.
You and I both see those developments.
Yeah, I think everybody can. I think they're obvious to most people. We're like, oh, let's not do that again, right? Or can we learn from that mistake and not do that again?
If you listen to Planning Commission, which probably nobody ever does, but I served on Planning Commission for 2 years. That is one thing. People that had been on Planning Commission before I had, it's like, we made that mistake. Let's learn from that mistake. We're not doing that again.
Yeah.
And so that, to your point, that's just exactly what you're saying, that we can't make those mistakes again. At the same time, we have to be open to change.